She stood in my front yard, heels digging into the soil I spent months planting with my own hands, lips curled like she just smelled cow manure. "This," she said, pointing at my tomato vines and sunflower rows, "violates community landscaping standards." I didn't even answer. I just stared at her stupid clipboard like it had the authority of the Supreme Court. She slapped a pink violation notice on my fence and said, "HOA will be fining you $500 per day until this eyesore is removed." I looked past her. To my chickens, my rows of lettuce, the little wooden swing my daughter built last summer. "This is my land," I finally said, keeping my voice low. "This is a ranch. We don't live in a resort." She smiled like I'd handed her a win. "Then maybe you shouldn't live here at all." 3 days later, my wife came back from the mailbox crying. The HOA had doubled the fine. No hearing, no warning, just numbers printed in red ink and a final notice that if we didn't pay, they'd place a lien on our home. That night, I sat on my porch staring at the HOA community center across the road. Wide open parking lot, 14 empty spaces under the sun. I sipped my iced tea and whispered, "You want landscaping? You'll get it." I got up before sunrise the next morning, loaded my truck with saplings, peach, apple, even a couple pecan trees, and backed into the HOA's parking lot like I owned the place. Which technically I kind of did. See, years ago when this neighborhood was first getting developed, I bought a strip of land the builders considered non-essential. It was cheap, awkwardly shaped, and ran right behind the community center. No one cared about it then, until now. I pulled out the old plat map from my files, double-checked the coordinates, and smiled. The back half of their parking lot? Mine. Fully deeded, fully legal. By 9 a.m. I'd planted the first 3 trees. By noon there were 10. A couple HOA board members came out, pacing around with that fake concern they put on when they realized they're not in control anymore. One of them, Mark, I think, tried to flex. "You can't just dig up our parking lot." I didn't stop digging. "Not yours," I said, tossing him a copy of the land deed. "See the dotted line? Everything on this side's mine. That includes the spot where your car's parked." He looked at the paper like it was written in alien language. Then his eyes snapped up to me. "This isn't over." I smiled, wiping dirt off my hands. "You're right. It's just getting good." That evening, I posted the first wooden sign, next to the growing orchard. "Private property, no parking, future home of the Ranch View Community Orchard. Entry by invitation only." And suddenly, their lot didn't feel so public anymore. 2 days later, Karen showed up with a clipboard, a camera, and that same tight-lipped smile that always came before trouble. She didn't even greet me, just started snapping pictures of the trees like they were evidence in a crime scene. "You've altered the community's shared space without board approval," she announced loudly, making sure the neighbors across the street could hear. I was elbow-deep in mulch, but I didn't flinch. "It's not shared space, Karen. It's my land. Want the deed again?" She held up her phone. "The board will be pressing charges. You've damaged HOA infrastructure. You're illegally blocking access." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Karen, you built a community center with half the foundation over someone else's property. That's not my fault." Her eyes narrowed. "We'll see what the county says about that." Funny thing was, I'd already spoken to the county. My buddy, Joe, works in zoning enforcement, and when I showed him the property lines and what HOA had built, he whistled. "They're sitting on a ticking time bomb," he said. "That building? 3 feet into your land. You could technically order demolition. But I wasn't interested in tearing things down. Not yet. I had something better planned." That evening, I hired a crew of local veterans, guys who knew hard work and hated bullies. We started fencing off the orchard, bright wood posts, sturdy wire, a small gate with a keypad lock. By morning, Karen and her minions pulled into the lot and found themselves locked out of their own building. Karen stormed to the gate and rattled it like a prison door. "Open this now!" I sipped my coffee from the porch and called out, "You said it was an eyesore. Thought I'd dress it up a little. That gate wasn't just a fence. It was a message, and the message was, I'm done playing defense. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of shouting. 2 tow trucks had pulled into my orchard, right into my property, and started hooking chains to the fencing. Karen was there, arms crossed, barking orders like she was leading a SWAT raid. You're illegally enclosing HOA access, she yelled when I stepped outside. We have every right to remove this obstruction. I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone and hit record. The lead driver hesitated. Ma'am, you sure this is HOA property? That guy's filming. Karen snapped. Don't listen to him. I'm the board president. I said move it. That's when the sheriff's car rolled up. Right on time. Deputy Hawkins stepped out, adjusted his belt, and walked over slow. Morning, folks. Got a call about a property dispute. I handed him the deed. Again. She's trespassing. They're trying to destroy my fence. That building back there? It's 3 feet onto my land. Every tree here is legally planted. Karen scoffed. This man is harassing the HOA and threatening board members. Hawkins flipped through the papers. Then he looked at the freshly poured concrete, the orchard, the keypad gate. This is solid work, he muttered. Looks like the land's his, ma'am. Karen's face turned beet red. You can't just take over community space. Hawkins looked her dead in the eye. Ma'am, you can't just build on someone else's land and act like it's yours. Then he turned to the tow truck guys. Unhook everything. If you touch one post, that's destruction of private property. The trucks backed off. Slowly. Karen stood there frozen like her whole world had cracked open. Before she could spit out another threat, I added calmly, and just so you know, I filed a formal boundary dispute with the county this morning. They'll be visiting the HOA office later this week. Her eyes twitched. That office, the one she called her headquarters, it was about to be ruled an illegal structure. She thought she had power. But I had proof. 3 days later, the county inspector showed up. Clipboard in hand, hard hat on, measuring wheel rolling across the asphalt, like it was hunting for truth. Karen followed him around like a lost chihuahua, trying to point things out, throw blame, twist facts. This is clearly just a minor mistake, a few inches maybe, nothing that requires drastic action. The inspector didn't even look at her. He marked something on his sheet and muttered, 3 feet and 7 inches encroachment. That's not minor, that's structural. Karen froze. So, what does that mean? He looked up finally. It means your HOA building partially sits on land that doesn't belong to you. You built without a proper boundary review. And unless you get a signed easement from the landowner, he turned and pointed right at me. You're in violation of county code. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I walked over slowly, leaned in, and smiled just enough. And I don't remember signing anything, Karen. By evening, the HOA's group chat exploded. One of the board members leaked screenshots, members asking if Karen had lied, if she'd forged documents, if this could mean fines for them too. But that wasn't the real twist. That came the next morning. I got a knock at the door. It was Todd, one of the HOA board guys. Nervous, sweaty, carrying a Starbucks peace offering like that would fix anything. The board wants to negotiate, he said. Maybe work out a compromise, no hard feelings. I took the coffee, sipped it, and didn't smile. What kind of compromise? He swallowed. We'd like to rent back the parking area, and maybe part of the building, temporarily, while we sort things out with the county. I leaned on the porch railing and looked him dead in the eyes. You fined me for a garden, Todd. Called it a violation. Now you want to lease my orchard? Shifted awkwardly. Well, yes. I took another sip. Then I want something in writing. What? That every single fine against my property gets voided, retroactively, and... I paused, just to watch his throat tighten. I want Karen to deliver the apology, publicly. He blinked. Like, in front of people? In front of everyone. Because sometimes justice isn't quiet. Sometimes it tastes like peach blossoms in the parking lot Karen used to call hers. The community center lawn was packed that Saturday. Lawn chairs, fold-out tables, Half the neighborhood standing around with phones out, already recording. Word had spread fast. Karen stood at the front, flanked by two tight-lipped board members who clearly wanted to be anywhere else. Her lips were pressed so thin they looked like they'd vanish. I was in no rush. I strolled in with my daughter on one side, my wife on the other, and the smell of orchard blooms trailing behind us. The irony? This was the same place they'd posted the HOA violation board every month, my name on it bold and red. Now all eyes were on her. She cleared her throat, holding a printed paper, but I shook my head. No script, off the cuff. You could hear the silence. Finally, Karen looked up and said, barely above a whisper, "I apologize for the fines, the threats, and for misusing HOA authority." Someone in the crowd muttered, "Say it louder." Another, "This is going on TikTok, Karen." Her jaw clenched, but she obeyed. "I'm sorry, to the Smith family, for everything." I gave a small nod, then stepped forward. "We accept. And just so it's clear, there will be no more fines, no more harassment, and my orchard stays. Forever." The crowd erupted in quiet claps, a few cheers, and the HOA board, well, let's just say a few of them looked like they were already planning Karen's replacement. But I wasn't done. I reached into my bag and pulled out a rolled-up banner. My daughter helped me hold it up as we walked to the front of the orchard gate. The Freedom Grove, dedicated to landowners who stand their ground. The message hit hard. People started taking photos. Even Todd from the board clapped. Karen? She slipped away through the crowd like a shadow under the noon sun, and as the wind moved through the young trees behind me, I just smiled. I didn't plant this orchard for revenge. I planted it to remind them, you don't mess with a man who knows his land. The ranch wasn't just my home anymore. It was a legacy. Theirs was paperwork. Mine was roots, the kind that don't come out easy.